Tatsugiri did not even wait an entire generation before trying to reinvent itself. It called a meeting in a boardroom under the lake and said to its PR team, "How can I stand alone from Dondozo?" And their response was, "Well, you kind of can't because you're a bit of a attached item here. But here's some new moves that you can add into your move kit going into Pokemon Legends ZA. And here's a brand new Mega Pokemon on top of that." I mean, really, Tatsugiri gained such notable changes that it's almost like a brand new Pokemon. However, I don't necessarily think it can be a standalone Pokemon away from Dondozo. I think that Tatsugiri and Dondozo are like peanut butter and jelly. You're not just going to magically change that to peanut butter and steak, which honestly, that would be disgusting, and I'm sorry I put that into the universe here. But point is, Tatsugiri and Dondozo are a one-of-a-kind set. They are a great pairing that I think are very well off together. And I think with this brand new Mega form, not to mention Tatsugiri's brand new moves, it certainly adds a brand new layer to the Dondozo Tatsugiri strategy. And I think Tatsugiri, for what it's worth, did gain some great brand new moves here. But it's kind of like how I decided halfway through high school that I like wearing the color yellow. Now, not to say that I'm wearing a yellow shirt here, obviously, but point is, Tatsugiri had a little bit of an identity crisis similar to what I had going into my junior year of high school, but it's not all that bad. I think Mega Tatsugiri has the potential to shake things up once Pokemon Champions goes live. Now, one notable thing I will point out, though, is both Tatsugiri and Dondozo came out in Generation 9, the generation of terrestrialization, and now we have Mega Tatsugiri on top of that. There's a little bit of a conflicting interest here going on because we don't know how it's going to work in Pokemon Champions, but I would assume it's reasonable that if you use Mega Evolution, you won't be able to use Terrestrialization, which that does kind of disrupt the Dozo-Giri combination here, because Dondozo likes being able to Terrestrialize into a Grass type so it can't be put to sleep. So maybe there might have to be some workarounds there, but we're not talking about Dondozo for the most part. We're here to talk about Tatsugiri with its brand new moves and its brand new Mega Evolution. But before we dive right into that, let's have a quick word from me in the past talking about today's partner. So take it away, me. I am a simple man, and I know I'm using that word generously, but I'm a simple man. When I get up to start the day, I like to do two different things. The first, I brew myself a cup of coffee. The second, I hop into the shower with Cheeky soap. I love the way how the soap feels on my skin. It lathers up quite nicely, and honestly, I can't think of a better way to start my day. So if that sounds enticing to you, great news. Use my code SHUCKO to snag yourself an order of Cheeky soap for 10% off. Now, this here is the plain Jest soap. It doesn't really have a scent to it, so if you're looking for that subtle clean and you don't want to have to worry about violating any scent policies, this is the soap for you. But if not, well, head over to usecheeky.com/shucko to check out the rest of Cheeky's selection, whether it be scents such as, and hold on one second here, we got my box of delight here. Whether it be scents like Pulp Francis, which is a nice citrusy scent, or Absolute Cinnamon. Gee, I wonder what that one smells like. Cheeky has plenty of selection to meet your scent needs. And regardless whether you pick a soap with a scent or even just Cheeky's plain soap, it will cut through that grimer odor that's been building up like nobody's business and hiding away that evidence, so you don't even have to worry about people finding out about you assaulting humanity with your natural stench. You're welcome. Use cheeky.com/shucko to snag yourself 10% off on your orders of soap. What are you waiting for? Head on over right now. Pause button. Or better yet, just open a separate tab and listen to me ramble as we keep going on. Anyways, Thank you to Cheeky for partnering with me for today's video, and now let's dive right back in to the discussion. So normally we would be diving right into the stats at this point into the video here, and I would geek out about some numbers, but I want to talk about some of the additions to Tatsugiri's move pool first, because Tatsugiri gained actually a surprising amount of new tools into its move kit, and while it didn't have the greatest coverage to begin with, and it still kind of doesn't, Tatsugiri's gained plenty of new moves, but I went through it and I picked out 3 that really stood out to me, and I think these are probably my top 3 moves that Tatsugiri gained in Legends ZA, and I'm really hoping it retains them for Pokemon Champions and potentially going into Generation 10. And these moves here are Scald, Ice Beam, and Calm Mind, with Scald being the most important one of these moves. Well, maybe Ice Beam being a very, very close second or potentially tying. I think Scald is probably the best water type attack that Tatsugiri could have gained, because Tatsugiri doesn't really have the greatest water type coverage despite being a water type Pokemon. Make it make sense! But the point here is, as far as Tatsugiri goes, its strongest hitting water type attack is Hydro Pump, which doesn't have the greatest accuracy, and as far as single target water type moves go, the next options it has after Hydro Pump is Chilling Water, which is a very weak debuffing move, or Water Pulse, which is a mid little splash to the face that might potentially confuse the target. And then it's got the spread options of Muddy Water, which isn't really the most accurate, clocking in at 85 accuracy, whereas Hydro Pump is an 80, but only for 90 power. And then Surf, which is accurate, but a move that hits the entire field, which could be a little bit perilous for any partners that are around for Tatsugiri. But point is, Scald fixes this big time. It is a nice, reliable 80 power water type attack benefiting from Stab. It can potentially burn the target, which is great because Tatsugiri doesn't have the greatest physical defense. And if you do burn that target, well, now you're putting a little bit of chip damage, or rather passive burn damage, onto your opponent as well, which is going to be relatively nice, because while Hydro Pump does have a much higher base power at that 110, and Tatsugiri might potentially need to step on that gas right away once it's exposed from Dondozo fainting, Scald is probably the next best option here because you don't have to worry about missing. And it's pretty decent power with that base 80 when you apply having Stab to it. And plus, you can always hold a Life Orb on the base form, or a Specs on the base form, or, benefit from the boost to the special attack stat that the Mega Evolution gains. So, you have that. Now, Ice Beam is very important as well, because this is a much more reliable way of threatening grass types than hoping, maybe my Draco Meteor will crit, or maybe my Draco Meteor won't miss. Because, Tatsugiri, it never had Ice Beam before, which I didn't realize. It mainly just had Icy Wind, which, similar to its problems with the water type front, you need to step on that gas and immediately threaten some damage. And, having access to that Ice Beam is going to be great because it's single target damage. You don't have to worry about potentially missing one of the 2 targets or having Wide Guard block it. And, just being able to threaten some super effective damage into a Rillaboom or an Amoonguss or any ice weak grass type Pokemon, that can be really great. Now, if a Ferrothorn comes up, you're kind of cooked. But point is, Ice Beam is going to be doing this little Sushi Dragon some good here by being able to threaten some grass type Pokemon. And then we have Calm Mind. This can boost up our special attack and our special defense 1 stage each. And that's going to be great because now, as far as the team building aspect of Tatsugiri goes, you can kind of afford to invest more into your physical defense and your HP versus your special stats, because Calm Mind is going to be picking up the slack from reducing the EVs into those 2 stats because now you're boosting up your defense and your HP. So like you can kind of play to your bulk a little bit more with that Calm Mind. Now, Tatsugiri does already have Nasty Plot, which gives you a +2 special attack, but it's kind of frail, which I mean, Calm Mind does add that extra layer to your bulk, which is relatively nice, which I think is a very, very important thing to have in your back pocket right here. You can boost up your special defense, you can take hits much better, and depending on how your positioning for the board is, whether or not Tatsugiri is Pokemon number 2 of 4 to hit the field in your double battle, or if it's number 4 of 4, I mean, Calm Mind might be a little bit risky, but if you're leading Dondozo and Tatsugiri as your lead, a Dondozo goes down, and then you can bring out something that can set up Reflect and Light Screen, or, you know, just provide some redirection support. Tatsugiri getting that Calm Mind off and then Mega Evolving could add a new layer to your team that it might not have previously had, where Dondozo is now your sub-boss, and Tatsugiri is your final boss. Who would have thought that the little sushi dragon might be the big boss after all, despite giving Dondozo commands? But yeah, anyways, these are my 3 main important moves that Tatsugiri gained in his move kit, and I think they're going to be very, very helpful to have on a set. You can technically put all 3 of them together with Protect, or, you know, you could have Scald and Calm Mind with Dragon Pulse, and maybe Ice Beam or Protect. You could have something like that. It did gain access to Dark Pulse, which is nice. So, like, you can hit Psychic type Pokemon for some super effective damage. You could hit Ghost types for some super effective damage. Like, that could be nice at the end of the day as well. So, you do have that. And also, it gained Ancient Power for whatever reason, which, I mean, if you really want to go the Hakari route with it and just be a reckless gambler, you could try to go for that Omni Boost. Yeah, you could do that. Also, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 started, which I'm super hyped about. But yeah, anyways, let's talk about the stats now. All right, let's geek out on some numbers here. So base form Tatsugiri has base 68 HP, 50 attack, 60 defense, 120 special attack, 95 special defense, and 82 speed. So as far as this little graph here goes for our stat numbers, Tatsugiri's got a very nice bottom half as far as its last 3 stats go. 120 special attack is relatively nice because a hard-hitting move coming off of this thing is going to dent a lot of walls. Like, it might put a few cracks in the foundation there, which is going to be relatively nice at the end of the day. And I do have 116 EVs right here into the Tatsugiri, and that brings it up to 170. And there's a very important reason for that. It's to show you scaling for what happens when Tatsugiri Mega Evolves. And also keep in mind there's a modest nature on this thing. So when Tatsugiri Mega Evolves, its attack jumps up to 65, its defense jumps to 90, special attack becomes 135, special defense becomes 125, also gaining another 30 points right there, and its speed gets the remaining 10 points to hit 92. And if you look at this, we have a modest nature with 0 EVs, and we're at 170 special attack as well. So just to show you some scaling right here, 116 EVs and a modest nature gives base form Tatsugiri 170. Mega Tatsugiri, without any investment in just that beneficial nature, is going to hit that 170. So you're hitting some pretty decent firepower right here, especially when you factor in Calm Mind. So basically, you can take advantage of the fact that Tatsugiri's got a nice little upgrade to its special attack and a very big upgrade to its special defense, and it can have some fun with some Calm Mind numbers. So like if we put 1 point of EV's worth into our special defense to round it up to 146, we're going to be hitting a grand total of, drumroll please, 219 special defense after 1 Calm Mind. That is really nice right there. And with the 170, you're going to be hitting a grand total of 255 after a Calm Mind. That is relatively nice at the end of the day. You can now really consider investing into your bulk for your Tatsugiri. Now, you could still invest into your speed as well, but you're sitting at a pretty nice benchmark with the 112, factoring in perfect IVs and a neutral nature, because you're going to be outspeeding the likes of Pheromosa, Calyrex Shadow Rider, the Electrodes, the brand new Z Megas, when you have Tailwind at your disposal right there. So that could be relatively nice for Mega Tatsugiri right out of the gate. But, you could still invest a little bit more into your speed if you really wanted to, especially say maybe you wanted to maybe you want to make sure you're going to outspeed a max speeded Incineroar. Maybe something crazy happens and we get max speed neutral nature Incineroar in the format. Like, you hit 112 there, so maybe you decide you want to put the 1 point into it so that you hit 113, or maybe you're just really worried about max speed Incineroar for whatever reason. Well, that's 123. Maybe you decide you want to hit 124. So you just put 92 points worth into your speed right there, and you can hit that. And yeah, just some happy numbers to consider. Now, I don't know why necessarily, but I mean, max speed Incineroar does pop up from time to time, so you have that. Now, as far as the rest of your stats go, maybe you decide you want to invest into your maximum bulk, hit that 175, invest into your physical defense a bit more, maybe go up to 122, and then you can just put the rest into your special attack, hit that 180, and now you're going to be hitting some really scary benchmarks for your Calm Mind. Like, your 180 special attack right there, that's going to be getting an extra 90 points after one special attack boost. So you're going to be at 270. You're going to be hitting things relatively hard. Or maybe you decide you're just going to drop it down to 178 so you can put a little bit more investment into your special defense. Maybe you go to 176, maybe just so you can get that 150 into your special defense. And then that way too, your special defense is hitting a fun benchmark as well with the Calm Mind numbers. Like, you're getting an extra 75 points right there, because, half of 150 is 75. So, like, you're going to be hitting 225 special defense. Now, Tatsugiri is going to be getting really scary, especially if you have a screen or two on the field. Because, like, you could have Reflect and Light Screen reducing the amount of damage you take. Maybe you have Alola Ninetales and Aurora Veil. Maybe you led Tatsugiri and Dondozo. Dondozo just went down. You bring in your Alola Ninetales, you set an Aurora Veil, you get Calm Mind off, you Mega Evolve, and now you're ready to go. Like, maybe your Tatsugiri is ready to start throwing out those Scalds and doing some big damage, or maybe you're looking to just drop a Draco Meteor on something, or, you have the Ice Beam. You have that, or you have the Dark Pulse, which is still kind of weird that it gets, or, Ancient Power. So, yeah, you have plenty of good options right there to take advantage of that Calm Mind. Or maybe you decide, no, I don't want that. Maybe I want to commit to Nasty Plot. Maybe you decide you'll just go the one extra point into your defenses, invest more into your special attack, maybe bring it up to 192. And instead of going for Calm Mind, you do that Nasty Plot instead. Now you're raising your special attack 2 stages. And now you're just looking to obliterate things with a Nasty Plot boosted Scald or Draco Meteor. Or, because Draco Meteor does debuff you, maybe you decide you want Dragon Pulse instead. So maybe you have that just for the neutral typing matchup into a lot of things and just do the raw damage. So, yeah, maybe you decide you want to do something like that. Or maybe you decide you want to reduce that HP a little bit and just invest more into your speed and just go from there. Or maybe you decide you just don't want a Modest Nature, you want a Timid Nature so that you can get more out of your speed. And we also hit a point where even Smogon's like, hey, you can free up some EVs, so we'll do that. So you can have 212 points of EVs worth into your speed to hit 139, and you could have that 36 and a Modest Nature to hit 176 special attack, which you could just take the extra points you saved and bring yourself back up to 179. And now the 50% boost doesn't matter because Nasty Plot's raising your special attack 2 stages. So now you're doubling it each time. So you're going to be hitting some colossal numbers right there. Like 179 doubled is going to bring you up to 358. Not a whole lot of things are going to be loving that, especially if they don't have any screens working in their favor. And maybe you decide you're just going to have Protect as your last move. And then that way too, you can Dragon Pulse and Scald, or you can Scald and Ice Beam, especially too if you're playing something like, say maybe you have an opponent with a Grass type that has Terra Fire, and they don't have any Mega Pokemon on their team. Well, if they go Terra Fire, sure, your Ice Beam is going to be resisted, but now your Scald is super effective. So Water and Ice coverage is relatively nice as far as that goes. And one thing I do want to note before we kind of talk about some more team options is Tatsugiri's abilities. Like, Tatsugiri in its base form has Commander, so this is what allows it to combine with Dondozo and give Dondozo the +2 to everything. But alternatively too, maybe you are feeling a little bit brave and you kind of want to break up Batman and Robin here and have little Sushi Dragon stand on its own and become Night Sushi. You can have Storm Drain, which will redirect water type attacks to itself, and while it'll also give itself a water type immunity, it'll also raise its special attack one stage, which that could be great if maybe say you have an Incineroar as your partner Pokemon, or maybe a Magmar as your partner Pokemon. You could redirect away water type attacks, boost yourself up, get a free +1 into your special attack, and then Mega Evolve, and then do some bonus damage with that. So that could be a nice alternative if you do feel brave and you want to split them up. But I feel like Tatsugiri, especially Mega Tatsugiri with Dondozo, would be relatively nice as a pairing here, because you could decide if you want to have Tatsugiri and Dozo be your back two in a double battle or your front two in a double battle, and just kind of whittle some stuff down with Dondozo right out of the gate, and then have Dondozo faint, and then have Tatsugiri now have access to some partner Pokemon, potentially with redirection or fake out support, or maybe even just additional damage, or, even helping hand. Like, maybe Tatsugiri then Mega Evolves, and then you have access to that nice boosted special attack and special defense stats, and that extra bulk into your physical defense, and you just kind of go from there. So maybe you do something like that. And also, I want to point out, because I have this set to the Legends ZA OU ladder, it is also saying potentially Drizzle as the ability. Now take that with a little bit of a grain of salt here, because we don't officially know the abilities yet. But if this thing does get Drizzle, that could be really nice for rain teams, like for building around rain, because then Tatsugiri can Mega Evolve and then further power up its own Scald by summoning the rain. Now, do I think it'll necessarily get Drizzle? No, I kind of don't. Especially whereas we did see that kind of with Mega Drampa. I can't quite see them giving us 2 Drizzlemons. Now, I could be wrong. If I am wrong, be sure to let me know in the comments. But I could maybe see Storm Drain, which isn't that far of a leap because that is Tatsugiri's hidden ability. And honestly, I would love to see it become Storm Drain. And then that way, too, it could just get a little bit of extra firepower while also providing some redirection support of its own. Or, Swift Swim could be a fun ability to see on Mega Tatsugiri, and then that 92 speed is doubling and you don't have to rely strictly on Tailwind to be able to outspeed some Pokemon. And then the nice thing about that too is then that Dark Pulse does suddenly become relevant, because now you're outspeeding Shadow Rider if you have rain on the field. So, like, you could potentially have that working in your favor. Now, I don't think Dark Pulse is going to be that big of a move on Tatsugiri. I mean, if I did, it obviously would have been in the move segment before this. But yeah, I think Tatsugiri could potentially have some fun if it does get access to, say, something like, say, Storm Drain as its ability, or Swift Swim for Mega Tatsugiri, and I'm really excited to see what it might get. Now, it might get something completely different. Maybe it might get something like, say, Levitate, because in the boss battle of the ZA DLC, we do see it flying around on its platter of Mega Energy. So, like, maybe it gets Levitate. Maybe it gets a ground type immunity for some reason. I don't necessarily know, but it could be even just... How funny would it be if it's actually Commander? How funny would it be? So basically, you bring in Tatsugiri Mega Evolve combined and then switch in Dozo and then have Tatsugiri hide in Dondozo's mouth. Like, that would be kind of funny, but I kind of don't want to see that. But yeah, yeah. I think Storm Drain is probably the best for it. But maybe we might even see something that might benefit the dragon aspect of it. Like maybe we might see something like, say, Marvel Scale, which is one of Milotic's original abilities. I think it was Milotic's OG original ability, where it gets a 50% boost to its defense stat if it gets a status condition. That might be okay. Like we might see Tatsugiri with Marvel Scale, and then that way too that base 90 defense is going a lot further if it does get a status condition. Now, because you can't hold a flame orb with the mega slot or the mega stone taking up the item slot, that might be a little bit awkward, but I mean, I could potentially see something like that. But definitely let me know what you think down in the comments below, what you might think this thing might get for a ability when it mega evolves. Now, as far as some team options go, let's talk about that. Okay, now we're into the part of the video where we can actually talk about Dondozo. And honestly, while Dondozo has had a little brief history of swimming Don solo, I think it's too good of a partner to pass up for Tatsugiri by giving it that Omni boost with +2 into each of its stats. I mean, Dondozo can do a lot of damage to things, whether it be using Wave Crash, Heavy Slam, Order Up, Earthquake, or even Rock Slide. It's got plenty of good single target damage as well as spread options at its disposal. And another scary idea that I thought of too is Order Up grants it either an attack, defense, or speed boost depending on the form of Tatsugiri in its mouth. Well, hypothetically, Mega Tatsugiri makes the other two forms right there. So imagine if this thing does get Commander still as its ability as a Mega Pokemon. And then Dondozo gets an Omni boost to its attack, defense, and speed right there. It basically has Hisuian Lilligant's victory dance with damage on top of that, which is a terrifying concept, which yeah, we're putting some horrible things into the universe right there. But you know what? I would love to see the outrage about that on Twitter. That's for sure. So yeah, before I tell myself even more of a funny here, let's move on. I think Incineroar obviously is going to be a great partner as well too, because it does provide a nice pivoting option, whether it be using Parting Shot or U-turn. It has that nice Intimidate support right there. Plus, it's got Fake Out. If you are using a Calm Mind set on Tatsugiri, you can have Incineroar go for a Fake Out, or, maybe what you can even do is you can go for Fake Out into something, have Tatsugiri go for a Calm Mind, and because base form Tatsugiri is naturally faster than Incineroar to begin with, maybe you get greedy, you go for that second Calm Mind, and then click the Parting Shot, pivot into Dondozo, Tatsugiri will hide in Dondozo's mouth, and then you now have a +2 special attack, special defense Tatsugiri ready to go and ready to throw fins once Dondozo faints, and then you just Mega Evolve your Tatsugiri, so you do have that. And plus, you get the Flare Blitz to threaten Steel types for Tatsugiri. Like, if we see Ferrothorn in the same kind of a format, as Dondozo and Tatsugiri, while that Grass Steel typing is certainly not doing Tatsugiri any favors. So you can have that Incineroar to threaten the Flare Blitz damage and just deal with Ferrothorn that way. And plus, you also have Knockoff for some nice utility. But another thing too is you could also have Snarl, and then this way too, like, You can lower opposing Pokemon's special attack. We used to see this a lot more in the Sword and Shield era since Incineroar had knockoff taken away from it at that point. So maybe we might see Snarl come out again in the future, and that honestly wouldn't be too bad. We could also see Amoonguss, and similar enough to Fake Out on the Incineroar, you could have the Rage Powder to redirect away attacks. You could have Spore to shut things down, put them to sleep. You could even go for Pollen Puff to either chip down your opponents or to heal up the Tatsugiri, or maybe you decide that you're going to go Amoonguss and Dondozo, put something to sleep, and then pivot out Amoonguss into Tatsugiri. Seeing as Amoonguss has that regenerator ability, so Amoonguss would heal up its own HP, and then Tatsugiri would come in, power up Dondozo, and now Dondozo could potentially have a 1v1 while there's a sleeping opponent on the field, or you could still even just throw out those Earthquakes or those potential Rock Slides and just hit both targets right there. So honestly, Amoonguss might not be a bad playstyle right there as well. Lead Amoonguss and Dozo, put some to sleep, get Dozo to do some damage to some stuff, and then switch in Tatsugiri, or alternatively too, because Wave Crash does have a considerable amount of recoil, you could even just Pollen Puff up the Dozo and then eventually get Amoonguss out and then just pivot in the Tatsugiri. And plus, you can also have that Rocky Helmet on Amoonguss, which is really nice for Pokemon that like to spam multi-hitting contact moves, like say Urshifu Rapid Strike and its Surging Strikes. So you can whittle them down even further for the Dondozo and Tatsugiri power team right there as well. So that's certainly not a bad option. You can also have Raging Bolt, and the nice thing about Dozo and Tatsugiri is they don't necessarily have to be the lead. They could be the closing pair right there. And you could have Raging Bolt with a calm mindset, just whittle some things down. You can have that leftovers to recover some HP at the end of the turn. You can Calm Mind. You could alternatively run a Life Orb or Assault Vest instead. If you're running the Assault Vest, obviously you can't run Calm Mind, but you could use those items as well as opposed to the leftovers. Like if you have a Life Orb too, like you'll be boosting up the damage of Thunderclap as well as the other damaging moves of choice. Like you could see Thunderbolt and Thunderclap having some nice synergy where Thunderclap has that priority and then Thunderbolt is just great electric type damage. You could have Dragon Pulse for the general damage, or you could upgrade that to Draco Meteor, and then that way too you could just drop that Draco onto something, do some massive damage, or alternatively, like Incineroar, you could run the Snarl. So you could certainly do that. And a fun little tech too that Raging Bolt does get is it does get Weather Ball. So like I was saying about how Mega Tatsugiri might even potentially get Drizzle. I mean, you might have a way to open up some water type coverage on your Raging Bolt that way. So like that could be relatively fun. So that's not a bad option right there. So I think Raging Bolt could be a good partner. And I mean, so far, all of these partners have been pretty reliable and consistent on Dondozo and Tatsugiri teams. So, like, we're not really breaking the bank in terms of creativity here, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which Tatsugiri was kind of broke to begin with, so that's why they fixed it. But yeah, anyways, that's what I was thinking about those Pokemon so far. And then the last one that I thought might be kind of curious is Latios. And the reason being, we talked Tailwind earlier, and looking at some different Tailwind mons, I mean, you could technically throw out Tornadus, where you could have the Prankster Tailwind and Rain Dance, which is certainly viable. But I was thinking too, like Latios, it's another dragon, it's faster than Tatsugiri, and its Luster Purge has a 50% chance to lower something's special defense one stage. So, like, that's certainly not a bad thing as well. Like, you get some pretty decent chip damage into something, you can lower their special defense, and then Tatsugiri can come in and do some big damage as well with a Calm Mind boosted Scald or Ice Beam. Or, maybe you decide that you're going to run that Muddy Water after all. Like, you could have that spread option after Luster Purge lowers something's special defense. So you do have that. And plus, Latios has the Draco Meteor as well. So, like, you can do some pretty decent damage. And it's also got a 130 special attack, which is pretty comparable to Mega Tatsugiri's 135 special attack. So that's a pretty nice thing to keep in mind. So that's the partner Pokemon that I was thinking that could pair relatively nicely with Mega Tatsugiri. Be sure to let me know what you think of those Pokemon down in the comments below, as well as some other Pokemon that you think might stand out as well. And you know what? On that note, we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you guys so much for listening to this talk here about our Sushi Dragon friend and its brand new moves and its brand new Mega form. I'm excited to see what Mega Tatsugiri can do, especially with the new layer that it does provide to Dondozo Tatsugiri strategies. So be sure to chime in. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. And once again, thank you to Cheeky for partnering with me for today's video. And don't forget, use code Shucko to snag some of their moisturizing bars of soap for 10% off. Anyways, catch you next time.